Index cards. Okay. Hi, have you ever wondered what it would be like to live in colonial America in 1692? My name is Corinne Ford, and today's topic of discussion it was going to be the Salem witch trials, more or less the beginning of the Salem witch trials and the mass hysteria that they created. Picture this. It's 1692 in Salem, Massachusetts, and it's the middle of June. It's hot. The town is cramped into into a courthouse, in the middle of a courthouse. No air conditioning. They're all in those heavy Puritan clothes. There's women, children, men, and those perverse few that like to watch people being tortured. In the middle of the room stands a girl, alone, scared, shivering, crying, looking around the room, for help from anybody. A kind word, opposing opinion on her accusation, anything. But all she gets in return are cold stares, fearful whispers, and all just complete avoidance. Her name was Bridget Bishop, and she was accused of consorting with the devil and practicing witchcraft, and was found guilty and sentenced to death on June 10th, 1692. Well, sorry, I lost here. The Salem witch trials were a horrific Holocaust, religious Holocaust. So I got it confused with the actual Holocaust. And they were brought on by, as I said, mass hysteria. But they didn't start in Salem. They're according to a Chadwick Henson in Witchcraft in Salem. There were 4 cases in New England that would shed some light on the reasoning behind the Salem witch trials, or just shed some light on how witchcraft came about and what constitutes as witchcraft. The first case was a Mary. It was a sorry, not Mary. Nope, not a Mrs. Ann Hibbins, and she was a well-to-do woman. She was married to a wealthy merchant, and she had very good hearing, and she was very quarrelsome. So she stood her ground. She had very quick wit. She was very, bolsterous, and for that time. Well, one day she overheard her neighbors talking about her, and she walked right up to them and said, "I heard you talking about me. You know, I heard what you said." And they're like, "No, you didn't. We weren't talking about you. Prove it." And so she said to them with enough veracity and accuracy that, they believed that she was possessed by demons. That said, there's no way that she could have heard what they said, or that she could have known word for word that, that's what they said, unless that she had voices telling her. So she was found guilty in 1955 by a jury and for witchcraft, but the magistrate threw that verdict out. He didn't believe it, and he sent the case to general court, and who in turn again found her guilty, but this time they sentenced her to death, and she was hanged in 1656. The second case is of another girl named Anne Cole, who had fits so severe and would hear all these voices to the point where she would start talking with these voices and these names, and they, immediately, boom, inhabited by demons. You're full of demons. This is what's wrong with you. Today's, however, we know that she would have, multiple personality disorder or schizophrenia, or any multitude of mental illnesses. So now we get to see, that better understanding of what constituted as being a witch or practicing witchcraft. They didn't understand mental illness back then. They didn't understand the broad spectrum of, science or vocabulary that we have today. So now we move on to the Salem witch trials, which, according to The Devil in Massachusetts by Marion L. Starkey, was started by these 2 little girls, who were bored, basically. Betty Paris, age 9, and Abigail Williams, age 11, who found interest in the teachings of Betty's father's slave, Tituba, who was from Bermuda. So she had lots of stories and like voodoo rituals that she would do from her country and her religion. And the girls immediately took an interest. And of course, as little girls do, they talk and they gossip, and word got out around the town, and soon all the little girls, or most of them, would come to Tituba for teachings and lessons. Well, as all good things do, they would come to an end, and one day Betty started having fits, which turned into Abigail having fits, which turned into all the girls all of a sudden to have all these fits, and uh, they were taken to the doctor, and the doctor said, doctor tried all these tests and came to the conclusion that they have the devil in them. He says, with because of his lack of vocabulary and knowledge. Well, the town at that point, was convinced. They were out for blood. They wanted answers. They wanted to know, who did this to you. They wanted a scapegoat, something physical they could pin it on and punish for breaking apart their peaceful lives. Well, that constituted in a whole year's worth of 19 needless deaths and sentences of innocent people, and all because of this witchcraft propaganda and these two little girls. And some of the girls even tried to take it back, but by then it was too late. The mob mentality had been set. Nobody would believe them anyway. They were just little girls. What did they know? So, in conclusion, the Salem witch trials and the mass hysteria were nothing more than a massive fear instilled by misunderstanding, ill-gotten knowledge, miseducation, and and that malice and need for control. And this all, but you gotta remember, this all occurred in that time period, that Puritanism, where anything that wasn't, anything that wasn't normal was against God and punishable by torture and death. So thank you all for listening, and I hope that you learned something interesting, and that society, and as a society, we learn to ask questions first and hang later. Thank you.